the GOP Senate candidate from Ohio, Bernie Moreno, accused women of being single issue voters. He said that their focus on abortion rights is, quote, a little crazy, and he even went as far as saying, well, once you're past the age of 50, why is this such a big issue to you? And of course, the anti-abortionists have been single issue voters. And it seems as though the GOP just can't help itself, especially the men in the GOP can't help themselves when it comes to talking about abortion. It feels as though this is. Do you feel that reproductive justice and the attacks on it are in a way a proxy for something even bigger, right? About basically controlling bodies?
Absolutely. So I want to back up for just a second. I absolutely am a single issue voter, and it is on abortion because how you show up for abortion and how you care about reproductive justice or think about who gets to decide if, when, and how to grow your family, that tells me a lot about what you think about housing policy, tells me a lot about what you think about workers' rights, tells me a lot about what you think about schools. Because when you are someone that deeply cares about access to abortion and making sure that everyone has the rights and resources that they need to be able to decide if, when, and how to grow their family, you probably want to make sure that kids have access to books in schools. Find me somebody who's pro-abortion but is also pro-banning books. You can't, right? Because it is an ideology of caring about making sure people have access to information. We know that people are trying to figure out where to live, how to take care of their families. And when they're pregnant, that is a time in which they're making another decision about whether they want to, do they have enough resources to care for the families that they have? Is their family complete? Do they have housing to live in? So that means you think about and you care about housing. So I think that when people are single issue abortion voters, I actually think that's really good because you're at the nexus of all of the social justice issues, all of the economic justice issues that matter in this country. You care about whether or not immigrants can have children, let alone whether they get separated from their children or not, no matter whose administration it is. This is what reproductive justice teaches you, to care about the intersection of our bodies and our ability to decide if, when, and how to grow our families. And do we have the rights and resources and support and freedoms to be able to do so? So I'm absolutely a single issue voter. What I think is frustrating with conservatives is that um, they really don't actually think about the entire whole life of a person. And that's where they can say, oh, they only care about abortion and make it this super dismissive thing and say, oh, it's so frivolous, right? That is because they just want to care about a baby being born, and it is about the control. As we wrote about in our book, Liberating Abortion, we looked at the ebbs and flows of when anti-abortion policy is like in full force in this country. And it's often at times in which there's increased immigration or because they haven't said time, there's pushes for women's rights and Black and brown people's rights. And as marginalized people begin to claim space in society, the first anti-abortion laws that we saw were a backlash to enslaved people getting freedom. The white supremacists were concerned that white people weren't having enough babies and they wouldn't be able to have power over newly freed Black people. That is
So
where
it's
you
a
also,
long-term plan for
it's a long-term
population
thing.
control, basically.
Control.
Yeah.
They are obsessed with making sure that they get to maintain control. And that's where you see them stopping Reconstruction, right? They're stopping the right to vote for Black people at that point. What was happening in the last like decade? Same thing. Black people are claiming space and autonomy. We had a Black president. White people became afraid. And so the first laws that they passed in the 2010s were voting restrictions and abortion bans because they wanted to be able to maintain control and power over people's bodily autonomy and their bodies and make sure that white women were still having babies and were able to increase the populations because they could control power in that way. But also at the same time, depressing the power that Black and Brown people could have through their right to vote. And then also taking these cases, these abortion bans, all the way through the Supreme Court in hopes of overturning Roe v. Wade, because they knew that it was this building block that they needed to be able to create a crack in a lot of the freedoms that we hold dear, such as the right to marry whomever you love.